this bracket tournament for novels where different judges, different mostly literary critics, but basically just people who are known as writers and thinkers and readers would judge two books that had been put against each other. And it was, I don't actually know how the morning news team picked those books, but it came to my attention because Amanda Hesser had judged Around, and I went and I read it, and I was like, this is fantastic. This is so much fun. What I loved about it was that the judgments were about writing. So some of it was about the novels themselves, but some of it was also about the way that the I don't know if you want to call it, I guess, a judgment. The judgment had been written. Um, and again, it almost told you more about the judge than it did about the books, because you were finding out what they liked in a book. Obviously, there was their bias when they were, comparing these two books to each other. And my first thought, really, without thinking, it was, oh my God, this would be so much more fun with cookbooks, because the idea would be that people would have to cook from them. And I also love this idea that you could have really good writers and not necessarily people from the food world writing about cookbooks. I say that because, and I think this today, I think sometimes we're too close to be, I don't mean that we can't be critical of them, but I even think sometimes whether or not a book is functionally sound, it's harder for us to tell because we kind of know too much. We can kind of finesse things, or I think we usually want to support the writer so much that that can cloud our judgment. So I like the idea that it was people who weren't from the food world and you could kind of see how they really cooked at home. But in that moment, I didn't really, honestly, I did not think about it really. I was like, wouldn't this be great if? And I tweeted it in response to Amanda, who had tweeted her judgment. I actually did not know Amanda personally. We had the same editor. I'd been reading her. I looked up to her. So when she replied right away, that would be great, and then was like, we should do it. I was like, oh, okay. It wasn't, and then the other thing that I think is important in this story is that um, she and Meryl Stubbs were working on what was going to be Food 52, but Food 52 didn't exist. I didn't even understand what it was. They kept talking about an algorithm. I just was really I'm serious. I was just really happy to be able to work with them, and that we were going to do something fun with cookbooks. And so, there was not a lot of rigor behind it in the beginning. It was the three of us sitting on my living room floor. What we were looking for was cookbooks that we loved, and also cookbooks that didn't fit the mold. We liked the idea that these were smaller, quirkier cookbooks. So I remember we had like Amy Pennington's Urban Pantry, which she had done in Seattle, and it wasn't like a known entity. She was a blogger that Meryl really liked. And it was when Canal House had just started doing their quarterly cookbooks. So that was the question of whether that was even a cookbook proper came up. And we were like, these are just really cool things. And then we asked, people to, we would pick two. When we were doing the brackets, we just tried to make it sort of as diverse as possible. And I don't mean diverse in any kind of like representing authors and cultures way. I just mean we wanted there to be a range of books, and then we didn't want to put books that were too similar in, competition with each other. If they were too similar, then they shouldn't have both been in the competition to begin with. We should have already figured out which of them we thought we liked more. But there really wasn't, because it was supposed to be fun and it wasn't supposed to be serious. Um, if it was serious, it was that we seriously loved the books. We wanted them all to win, but also that we wanted serious writers or writers we really liked to write about it. And then it took off. And the other thing that happened was that Food 52 became very successful. And so what was supposed to not be an institutional award system, because anyone who knows me knows that I'm extremely anti that, inevitably became that, because Food 52 was a brand. So, people started having opinions about what books we should have in there that I might not have wanted because they were more popular books. The same thing happened with judges. And then also the other thing that happened was that food media started to take it seriously, I think, for lack of other things. Like when
Yeah.
you have one thing, you take that thing more seriously. So, authors were like, why wasn't my book picked? And they thought that there was a system behind it that, and there wasn't,
Mhm.
and in the end, for me, I didn't want to do it anymore because it stopped being what I thought it was or what I had wanted it to be in the beginning. Which I don't know. I think that there's a lesson in that. There's a lesson in sort of like maybe nothing can ever be that pure. But anyway, that was the sort of what the Piglet was meant to be. And we had some great books that won because they were not expected winners at the time that they won. It was like a place where, you know, um, Good to the Grain, Kim Boyce's book on using alternative flowers could win an award at a time where that was not cool, or where Brooks had these fancy desserts, which I know now we all love, but like the Piglet was made for a
Yeah.
cookbook like that.